Day 3 of subfloor. Alright guys, so day 3 of subfloor. We wanted to show you kind of what we came up with. I have watched quite a few videos, YouTube videos of how people do the floor. Some people just do a straight floating floor, which is they put foam down, the plywood on top, and it sits there like a wood floor would, or laminate floor in a home. Some people actually screw the floor into the plywood into the metal floor of the bus. We're trying to do a little blend of both, okay? And some of the materials that we used for this, we used this Legacy premium subfloor. It actually has less glues in it than regular plywood does, which is just surprisingly, so that's what the research that I did showed. But this stuff is pretty heavy duty. It withstands water very well, not like a typical USB board. And then we're also, the insulation we're using is a Foamular 150 board. All right, that comes in Foamular 150, Foamular 250, 350, 450, I think up to 650. And all that number means is the 150 means that it can hold 15 pounds of weight per square inch. Okay, so if you did the math on that, each square foot will hold about 2,160 pounds, so a ton of weight dispersed evenly over that area. So we went with the 1-inch foam. We went with 2 layers of 1-inch foam. Okay, and I'll show you why. So what we did, and you'll see in the video, if you haven't already, if we haven't showed that to you already, is we've got some furring strips, is what I refer to them as. All I did was I took some deck boards, and they are pressure treated. The reason why I went with the decking board is because the nominal thickness of that is actually 1 inch. So what that means is if you compare that to the thickness of the foam board, it's exactly 1 inch. It fits perfect. So I put the furring strips down. I used a 5/8 auger bit here, or flat bit, drilled in there, counter set these bolts, or these self-tapping screws in there. I believe these are 1.5 inches long. They actually come with this little flange, which I didn't need, but I bought them in bulk. So I countersunk in here about 1/4 inch down, just to where the head of that could get down, maybe 3/8 of an inch. And then I screwed these screws, put construction adhesive on there. I used this Loctite PL3 3x strength, and this is just a split one I'm using, and I glued it down. I countersunk the holes, and then I screwed these into the metal floor of the bus. I tried to put these screws, self-tapping screws, anywhere there were seams, right next to the seams of where all the metal was joined on the floor, because the metal was extra thick around the seams where there was a flange. So I laid these furring strips out. I measured so that I could have to do the minimum amount of cuts, because if you have the board actually has these nice little serrated or pre-cut edges. So you can snap it in half, 24 inches and 24 inches. You can snap an end off, and there's 18 inches left, or 12 inches, depending on what you want to do. So we made it so that most of them had a 24-inch gap in between. So we could just snap the foam board in half and set that in there. So imagine this wood floor is the actual metal floor of the bus. We would lay the furring strips down, glue them, countersink, and then screw them in there. We would lay our first layer of foam board down. And we're running these the length of the bus right now. So the length of the bus is the length of the foam board that we're running. So after we got the first layer down, we would come back with the second layer of the foam board, and we would run the foam board widthwise now in there. So the length of the foam board would be widthwise, and we would make sure that we didn't line up any of the joints. So we would have 2 abutting joints like this. Right? If this was a joint, this was a joint, I wouldn't have this line up like that. We had made sure that we had plenty of overlap all the way. I didn't put the plywood, the subfloor, and the foam all the way to the inside edge of the bus walls. And the reason I didn't do that is because we're going to come back and we're going to fill those in with foam to help tighten them up. Plus, it would be really hard to get the plywood. You'd have to work the plywood in there because there's some metal lips and stuff. So anyway, so the second layer would go on top of the first layer just like this, and it would go the whole width. So the first layer is touching the bottom of the floor. You get the plywood, then you get the second layer, which acts as a thermal barrier. Doesn't so the wood doesn't go, the temperature doesn't go directly from the wood to the wood of the subfloor. So we've got this on there, so semi-floating floor now, right? Okay, but we did glue these down. Okay, the glue is just there to kind of help hold it. It's not really going to hold it a bunch because this foam board can rip with that glue. And then we came back and then we laid plywood down and we staggered those joints. So with the first piece of plywood we cut, we took the plywood like this, 4x8 sheet, and we actually ripped it down the middle, so we had a 24-inch section. That was the first section we laid, so that each section after that did not line up with a gap, okay, with any of the edges. So we're trying to cover all the gaps. So then the plywood, all right, would go cover on top, like so. This used to be longer here. We'll do it this way. All right, and it would cover, as you'll see in the video, you will understand. All right, and that plywood would be the top layer on there. Now with that, we glue the plywood, and then we're going to take these. We had some other screws. They ended up being a little bit too short. They really weren't biting this 1-inch board, so I went ahead and got these exterior screws. These are 3-inch, and if you look, it looks just a little bit too long, like it would hit that metal floor. So all I do is I put it at a slight angle and I drove them in there, and I'll tell you what, that floor pulled down extremely tight now. So that floor is actually secured to the floor of the bus through the metal, through the foam, through the plywood, and the only part that's actually touching the bottom are these screws. So I'll probably, some of the tools that we used, I was using a razor knife to cut some of the foam board. I end up using just a little hunting knife that I've got here. You could use any knife. I just score it a couple times, as you see in the video, and then we flip it over and we try to snap it in the right part that we scored, because like I said, it does have some scored parts already in it. And we made this little jig because this is tongue and groove plywood, right? So this was one spot that I hit on with a hammer. It will damage if you hit on with a hammer. So what I did is made a jig. So this jig, once we put the piece of plywood in place, this will go on the existing lip of the plywood, and then we'll take a Debco hammer, and we'll tap on it, and it'll actually help seal the subfloor tongue and groove in, and that ends up working real well. We figured that out on the second day, and we made a jig. But yeah, other than that, you know, a little bit of trial and error. There is a lot of trim work along the way. The boys are learning, I think, quite a bit. I'm still learning quite a bit on how to do this. Never worked on a bus like this before. But yeah, we're on the third day today, so we're going to try to finish the front end of the bus. Wish us luck, and thanks for joining us, guys. Appreciate it. victory, guys. Awesome. 5 days of hard work, 3 or 4 days of planning. We've got the subfloor in. And on to the next part, doing the layout of the floor, finalize those plans, and then yeah, we're going to start running some wiring, doing some walls, and then all that fun stuff. So thanks for watching, guys. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.